This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. What are your big questions about this football team before they get into training camp? I imagine everybody's going to have a lot of different questions for this team because so much is unknown for this football team. And sometimes unknown can be really good, sometimes unknown could be really bad. We don't know which unknown we're going to be unwrapping at the start of the season, but there's a lot of questions you can ask about a lot of different parts of this Browns team, right? You can ask questions about the secondary. You can ask questions about the linebacker depth. You can ask questions about running back depth. You can ask questions about the youth and all of our pass catchers and not really having a veteran out there. Obviously, questions about our quarterback room, our head coach. All these things can be points where you ask a lot of questions about what it is that the Cleveland Browns are doing and what the plan is there. But I'm going to try to bring my three biggest questions for the Browns before we get to camp. Things that I would love to know by maybe the second or third week of camp or have a better feeling on by then. So we're going to talk about that. But before I get to that, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. All right. So what are the big questions that I have about the Cleveland Browns that I think are going to dictate a lot about how this season goes? The first one I think is obvious, right? I've talked about this before, but it centers around the quarterback position because in these next 40 days and really within the next 2 months before we get to the middle of August, we're going to have to learn a lot about this quarterback room that we don't know a ton about. And what we do know about this quarterback room isn't necessarily the most encouraging information out there. First, we have to figure out, are the Browns going to add Brendan Sorsby to this roster? I think there is a possibility that happens. I know that some people have reported that the Browns are absolutely out on this, but I just don't think the Browns are in the situation where they could turn their nose up instinctually at quarterback options for them. It doesn't mean that they go and swing at every single one that they can look at, but they do have to consider and really think about every quarterback that's available. And right now, if they have made their mind up, that doesn't seem to me like a team that's really done the proper amount of research to really determine whether this is for them or not. So I imagine they're still working through that process right now. They'll probably be working through that process a month from now at Brendan Sorsby's pro day. But yeah, first we got to figure out, is that dude going to be on the roster? And if he is going to be on the roster, is he going to be suspended? Is he not going to be a factor for the first half of 2026? How are we going to treat him? Where is his priority in the development tree for this team that's already trying to work back at Deshaun Watson from injury, that's already trying to develop Shedeur Sanders? Where do you fit Brendan Sorsby in that rotation? So there's that part of the quarterback room that has to be asked. But I think the bigger part is the part that we know about right now, which is the Shedeur, Deshaun Watson, and to a lesser extent, Dylan Gabriel part of this quarterback competition. The biggest thing for different reasons is I think I want to see both these quarterbacks in game-like situations as often as possible. For Deshaun Watson, I think that's for obvious reasons, right? You want to see Deshaun Watson in live contact because we know what Deshaun Watson has looked like in live contact situations in Cleveland. He's played 19 games, and maybe 5 of those games he's looked good, right? Plus maybe a preseason performance here or there. But even some of the preseason performances for him have been pretty shitty. So you'll want to see Deshaun Watson look a little bit like Deshaun Watson in the preseason, if that is possible for Deshaun Watson at this point. But you want to know what you're getting into, and you want to see him in a game-like situation. Now, I think it's going to be interesting to see how Todd fits Shedeur into the preseason game schedule, because I know that Shedeur can throw well enough to look good against a against a preseason defense, right? Especially if he's not going to be seeing a bunch of exotic rushes or things like that. Like he's probably going to look fine in just straight up competition versus the preseason. I mean, last year, outside of that Rams game, he was actually okay in the preseason. Now, the big question for me with Shedeur is like game management. And I want to see Shedeur kind of handle those end of game situations at the preseason. Like, I know that that's going to be against lesser competition, but with him, I want to see him just make the right decision for the situation in the game that the Browns are in to be able to win it. And I don't know how else you can replicate that, right? Obviously, you would want him to take some reps in the first half where teams are playing more starters. But for me, he'll get that in practice. He'll get that in joint practice. We'll be able to see that. That's not really the part of Shedeur's game that concerns me. It's really the decision-making and the game management that I have my concerns about. So I wonder if they do play him at end-of-half situations and tell him to treat it like an end of game. Or if they play him in the fourth quarter of some of these games to see if he can manage a lead. Because if you looked at some of his stuff from last year, there's a lot that wasn't amazing on that tape, but I think the most concerning thing was the game management aspect of his job. So for different reasons, I want to see both these quarterbacks in game-like situations, and I think it's going to be real possible to get both these guys in game-like situations in the same games. I don't think you need to like sacrifice anything that you're seeing from Deshaun Watson, because you know that Deshaun can manage a game pretty well. That's not been a problem with Deshaun. You just need to see if Deshaun can like perform versus live competition, right? So I think Deshaun should probably play the first snaps of every preseason game that he's in, because that's going to give us more information on what he needs to fix. And for Shedeur, I think he needs to play, you know, those end of half or end of game situations as much as possible in the preseason so we can see how he can manage a game better. So these two quarterbacks competing for your starting job, they come with two different sets of concerns. I think it's important to address those things. And I think the only way you're going to address those things are in the game-like situations. So you got to figure that out. And also, by the time we get to camp, we'll figure out what they're going to do with Source, because I think the deadline for the supplemental draft is like before camp. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But that's going to be a big question for this football team. The second question for this football team is this offensive line going to be set early on? Because that's an area where they can't waste a ton of time during training camp. I understand that they want to see technically who's the best at playing center for them, and they're going to battle it out between Jenkins and Parker. But I'm going to be honest, just throw the rookie in there and just get this thing going. Because this Browns offensive line does not have time to really mess around with what that rotation's going to look like. They need to get those five guys together, and they need to get those five guys working together as often as possible, as soon as possible. Because, again, 5 new offensive linemen in a whole new system, and all 5 of these offensive linemen have no chemistry with anybody else on this line. There is nobody with playing experience at any level with anybody on this offensive line. They will all be perfect strangers to each other, no matter what combination they throw out there on Sundays. So you need to make up for that, right? You need to get your 5 set as soon as possible. Decide whether you want to play the rookie or not, whether what you've seen so far is good enough to put him out there. I think you got enough veterans around him that you could throw the rookie out there and be fine. But either do it or don't. But we can't be waffling on who's going to play center in August, because this team's already going to be fighting an uphill battle on getting this offensive line together by the start of the season. Like, that's going to be tremendously difficult. I imagine that they're going to go all the way to like week 4, maybe even week 6, and they're still going to be pretty sloppy on that offensive line just because they haven't really played together, right? Like that's already, if you make the decision right now, where you're going to probably be at, right? If you drag that out an extra 2 or 3 weeks, God forbid a month, then you're just extending the length that you're going to have those kind of problems. So I think it's to the benefit of the Cleveland Browns to not waffle here. If you think that Parker Brailsford is the future of your center position, then just put him at center. We don't need to see the competition between Luke Whippler and Elgin Jenkins and who can play here or there. I don't need to see Elgin take center snaps and guard snaps in training camp. I just need these guys to get used to playing with each other in a set spot. And the sooner they set that offensive line, in my opinion, the better, because they just don't have time to waste in that situation. Like, again, I understand you want to have competitions. Everybody's got to earn it. All that stuff's important. But let's be real here about what the task is for this offensive line. This ain't a situation where we got the luxury to just let guys battle it out for 4 weeks. We got to figure out who these 5 are and just lock in on these 5, because that's going to be a task. Again, 5 new starters. All 5 of these guys have no experience with each other. That's going to be a task and a brand new offense for all 5 of these people. So not only are these guys new to each other, not only are the Browns starting 5 new offensive linemen next to each other, but the Browns are also asking all 5 of these guys to learn a different offense than they've been in before. You got to give that time, and in order to get that time, you got to be decisive about what you want to do early with that situation. The third big question is who's going to emerge as the third man in this pass rush, right? We know that guys like Grant Delpit and Carson Schlesinger are going to be healthy fixtures to be able to assist in this pass rush. We know and expect that Jarrett Verse and Mason Graham are going to be able to make a pretty large impact for the Browns pass rush this season. But who's going to be the third man, right? Who's going to be the third guy to step up? Is it going to be Alex Wright? Is it going to be Isaiah McGuire? Is it going to be Mike Hall? Is it going to be Xavier Collins again? Who's going to be the third guy to step up? And Aiden Huntington, right? Like that could be somebody who steps up, but they're going to need a third guy in that rotation to be able to anchor a lot of the things that they want to do. Again, losing Miles, huge loss to this defense. It's a significant blow. They'd be lucky to go from number 3, which they were last year defensively, to about like number 8, right? Like if that's the drop off they get, they would be pretty happy with that, but they could fall off further. And part of them falling off further could be because they don't have that third guy in that pass rush rotation that could provide a threat. If it's just Mason Graham and Jarrett Verse and they're playing good but not great, then you can see where you have your issues there. So who's going to be the third guy who steps up in that pass rush rotation? I think a lot of people like Isaiah McGuire, a lot of people like Alex Wright, a lot of people like Mike Hall, but one of those guys, maybe even Xavier Collins, somebody's got to step up and be the third guy in that pass rush. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.